So he will update us, and he will show us what in fact is this hydropower energy. Is it white or green energy, or what is the future of that source?
So just as an introduction, I would say something before my PowerPoint, is that electricity today is traded. Years ago, some years ago, every country planned the needs of electricity based on the country's expectations, what could happen. Today, that's not the case. We import and export electricity today. Sweden is it's very important for Sweden because all our large hydropower stations, but we also import electricity from Finland with oil shale electricities. Now and then we import nuclear power electricity from Finland and from Russia even sometimes because of this cable. So I think it's very important to remember that it's not a national thing anymore. It's like any trade-off thing. Um, the other thing is that the more electricity from sun or wind we get, the more we need balance power. When the wind doesn't blow and when the sun doesn't shine, we need power anyway. And then you need to have stored energy, dams, hydropower, or in some countries coal, or in some countries nuclear power. So that's the what is happening. And as you know, because of our internet use, the need of electricity increases all the time. So that's the background, what I'm going to say. So here we go. Hydropower, as was mentioned by Eva, is an important source for energy. And it claims now these days to be taking into to the discussions about climate change to be very green or blue or whatever, environmentally friendly. But this is not the case, of course. I think in Sweden, in northern parts of Sweden, everyone knows that. People living to our big rivers in the northern parts of Sweden, the mountain areas, they know very well that it's not environmentally friendly. No, sorry. Well, a free-flowing rivers is full of life. Not only fish, we mostly talk about fish, but of course also otters and beavers or whatever, big animals, but even maybe more, a lot of insects and invertebrates. That has very often a very important part to play in nature, in the surroundings also. For instance, you have all of, maybe you don't like them, but mosquitoes and gnats that are very important food for birds, etc. They come from the water and then it comes up in the air and are eaten by birds and others as well. So there is a lot of life. The shores of a river. This is River Vindelälven in Sweden, which is one of our so-called national rivers. You can see this shores. It's based on that there are different water levels, natural different water levels, and you can see in the drawing that you have different plants that sometimes stand underwater, sometimes above water. Then you have carex species, the same with them. Then you have willows, the same with them. They could be flooded or dry, it doesn't matter. And then it's the forest that could be flooded for a short time, but not for a long time. This is a natural shore, just as an example. To the right now, you can see Ume River, Umeälven, which has lots of dams, hydropower dams, how the shores look like. You have a lot of erosion at the bottom picture. You can see effects of erosion, and on the picture above, you can see that there are absolutely no different types of vegetation. It's willows mostly. The others carex and the other species, they are gone. So yeah, that's one of the problems that you might not think about. But and this is becoming more and more problematic, because again, as I said, the balance power is extremely important. So in Sweden now you can have a river, a big river, maybe have 10 cubic meters, and 20 minutes later 50 cubic meters because of demand for electricity. And no living organism can stand that in the long run. This extreme shifts fast, very short time shift between high water levels and dry conditions. That's another problem. And as I said, it's an important ecosystem, and you have, of course, upstream, downstreams, and floodings. Floodings going in the other direction, as we saw on the beaches, and different conditions in depending on if the river is virgin river, not used for hydropower production, or if it's used for hydropower production, and up and downstream. So this is the situation that is totally changed when you have dams. Say you have, maybe as in Sweden, rivers, maybe 8 dams in a river like this. It's no nature left, more or less. Not only in the river itself, but also on the shores. Shores are normally very productive. Here you can see the dots are hydropower plants, big or small, in Sweden. The red ones are the big ones, which are of importance, as I said, for balance power and producing a lot, and connected with cables to Finland, etc., etc. The definition, the EU definition, Sweden has had to change the definition of small scale and large scale, is now if you're under 10 megawatts, then you're small scale. Sorry, if you're under I always forget this, so please. Yes, above 10 megawatts, then you're large scale, and if you're under, you're small scale. And the problem, as you can see, all these blue and green and yellow dots, they are small scale, and they are of absolutely no use when it comes to balance power or anything. They are, I say, they are most hobbies for people, or for some kind of cultural heritage thing, running, destroying small rivers. But you can see the big rivers up in the north, they have lots of these dams, and they are, well, the upper north one with the most red dots, it has dry areas, only stones for kilometers and kilometers. So this is how it could look. This is a dry riverbed. The water goes in a pipe down to a hydropower station. This could go on for some 2-3 kilometers. So it has no water anymore. Maybe a little spill water, but nothing else. It's a dead river. And this is a dam, or it was a lake in northern Sweden, in the mountain areas. They are now used for dams. And in springtime, before snow starts melting, they very often look like this. They are empty of water because of electricity need during winter. Yeah, of course, this is also a dead lake or a dead dam. Another problem is the ice situation on these dams or lakes is very problematic for elks, but also for reindeers. So it's a problem for reindeer migration in northern Sweden. The ice is very, it's uncertain situation all the time, the ice condition. So this is a so-called fishway or bypass in the city where I live. It half of the money for it, it was quite expensive, came from the EU within a EU life integrated project. So you could see it was very complicated because in the background you can see the castle, very old castle, the big red building. The small red building is the first hydropower station ever built in Sweden. So of course that's cultural heritage. I can accept that. So it was not easy to build this bypass, but it functions very well. The main species for this migration for when it comes to fish is Aspios, which is a red listed species in Sweden. And by a camera that is in the beginning of the underwater camera, in the beginning of the bypass, one of the biggest Aspios ever seen in Sweden was on a photo you could see. It was something like 75 centimeters. Here you can see the effects of hydropower and damming of rivers in Sweden. If you look on all these red areas, they are gone. I mean, not only salmon, but also sea trouts and a lot of other species, of course. So you can see little bit better situation on the Swedish west coast, the green. The rivers are smaller there, but that's not Baltic salmon. That is not well. It's not exactly the same genoma as the Baltic salmon. And you have some small rivers. You can see even small rivers up in the north are red. And that's why the situation for the Baltic salmon and sea trout is quite bad. That's why CCB have this project, Free Baltic Rivers. Because the situation is in Finland, it's very bad as well. Then it's a little bit better because there are not so many really big rivers in the Baltic states, mainly small. So it's not exactly the same scale of the problem as in Sweden and in Finland. So it's not only hydropower. There has been lot of manipulation with rivers for years. One of the things was, of course, you can see a lot of forests. So in old times, the rivers were used for transporting timber, and for that you had to move stones and make the rivers more like a channel. That's another problem, that it's not only hydropower. There's also a lot of rivers destroyed by this timber flotation. Here you can see how many they are not in use anymore. Now the transport, of course, goes by big lorries, not the rivers, but a lot of these smaller rivers and streams are destroyed by this. There are now different projects to restore this, to put back the stones and trying to create rapids and so on in a more natural way than what you see on the picture. So the dilemma, which I spoke about in the beginning, is that we have increased needs. We want more renewable energy. And if we have, as I said, more sun and wind electricity, we need more. We need also a lot of power to balance when the sun is not up and when it's not sunny or the wind is not blowing. We need regulation and water storage capacity. And as I said, one of the difference between small scale and large scale hydropower is that very often the small scale don't have any storage capacity. Uh, Water just keeps running through the hydropower station. There is no really dam that has any importance for storage. We have climate change. We will have more or less water. For northern Sweden, the trends are more snow, more water, which is used by us as an argument to say, well, if we have more water and snow, why not use that for biodiversity instead of producing more electricity? And the answer from authorities and the companies is no, no, we need more electricity. So there is also, of course, a need for biodiversity. I mean, that's besides climate change, the biodiversity collapse in some cases is, of course, very, very important to deal with. And the rivers and freshwater systems are one of the worst when it comes to stress from the different activities related to rivers and freshwater. And there is also related to that ecosystem, of course, increased recreational activities, angling, tourism in different canoeing or whatever, is also, of course, increasing. So there is a lot of things to consider when you go into this discussion, because there are a lot of different arguments, good and bad, from different sides. This is Pite River, which is one of the other, the upper parts of this Pite Älven, Pite River is still free. And this is Storforsen, the great rapid, you can call it in English, which is quite famous. And there is an hotel and conference halls and so on very close to this area, so it's a popular place to have conferences and so on because of the river, of course. That's the reason. Biodiversity in freshwater, and not least as rivers, as I said, is a threat all over the world. Existing hydropower dams and construction of new one is a major problem. Even there, as you know, I guess there has been a lot of pressure for building hydropower dams in the Balkan states, and a lot of very nice rivers and some kind endemic trouts, for instance, has been extinct because of this. But another thing is that in Sweden, hydropower installations, they were mainly built in the 40s and 50s. When hydropower companies buy the local residents out, they bought the fishing rights, the boat rights, etc., for very low prices, and in promise to have instead employment opportunities when building the dams. And those days, there were absolutely no legal regulations of this. So all these big, older hydropower stations still working, they have no limit. You can go on forever with the systems they have. They don't have any to have update and revise because of new knowledge or new technique, the permit they have every, say, 20th year. Of course, if you have a hydropower installation today, it should have the most modern permit, of course, that exists when it's built. But there should also be a time limit when it should be revised, say 10, 20 years, I don't know what. But of course, there should be a time limit for the permit. I mean, most industries have to update the permits after 10, 20, 30 years, depending on industry. And in this permit, of course, today, it should be built with strict environmental demands, with minimum flows, etc. And there are techniques to improve the situation for fish migration and other water living species. I mean, from discussions with the big companies in Sweden, they all know this and they could do it. They just don't want to do it. They don't have to do it because of these old permits they have. And also using, of course, this argument then, as I said, well, it could be good from a climate change perspective, but not for environment in general. It's never green. It's the opposite. It's an industry with a lot of environmental problems, and they, compared to other industrial activities, they don't have to take any environmental considerations when it comes to environment, biodiversity, etc. So that was in general short what I would like to say. I hope you have lots of questions. Again, I will say that the situation in Sweden is a little bit special because we have our large rivers up in the north, and it's a big thing in Sweden. We have also the companies we have are also European, at least. Vattenfall is very well. It's known in Germany, causing a lot of problem in Germany. Fortum is another one, and these are all on a European market. Okay, thanks a lot.